Good evening. This is our Tuesday, March 12th, 2024, meeting of the Planning Commission. And we'll do the roll call.
All right, Stiles.
Here.
Greene.
Here.
DeWar Leonard.
Here.
Zaremski.
Here.
Osterholm.
Here.
Also present is Planning and Zoning Administrator Meg Leatherman.
Okay, reviewing the agenda, we have some public hearings. I understand if the applicants aren't present, we have to continue it. So we don't have any applicants yet. Maybe they'll come. So just to be aware of that. So then we'll look at our minutes. We're going to review our minutes. Does anybody have any changes? I had a question on page 2 about Ellen Hoover, asked that we revisit the 500 feet proximity. I know she did not want it closer than 500 feet, and I wasn't sure if this gave the wrong impression.
Well, she didn't really.
I think she was
indicate it
concerned
either
about
way.
us revisiting it.
That was not the impression I got. I'll rewatch it. I guess what I heard from her was, we'd like you to look at that restriction again with the knowledge that anything you do is going to impact something else. Be very careful when you do it. I mean, that was the overall message I just got. We want you to look at it again generally, but be careful. So I'll look at it again.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have anything? If not, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Is it second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll go to communications. Do we have any?
Oh, I apologize. I did not get it on the agenda. You did have the communication from Matt Raska, who sent the article.
Okay. Okay. I did see the article and looked at it. Great, thank you. And then the committee reports. Is there a report from the Active Transportation Committee?
I don't have an actual written report, but just a comment that the one key thing the Active Transport Committee will be working on is updating the Active Transport Plan. It's about to be 5 years old, needs to be renewed in that sort of time frame. And the only other items we talked about that really would be in a village staff update was that there seems that there's a number of grants in progress associated with safe routes to school and all that the staff's working on, having to do with flashing school zone lighting and some, a bike path extension off of Dayton Street and crosswalk enhancements. So that's also, but that would be in someone else's report, but that's the only other thing I have.
Okay, great. Gavin, do we have anything from the council?
Yes. Okay, so Johnny Burns was appointed the village manager. I assume you all know that, but just it's on my list here. And by my list, I mean Judy's list that she emailed me. Second reading and public hearing of ordinance 2024-01, which is the rezoning of the one parcel totaling 0.55 acres of property. It was approved. This was the thing that was brought to us that sounded like it was maybe just an error in the previous zoning changes. We received a letter from Susan and Brian Hausch asking council to give direction to the Planning Commission regarding inclusionary zoning. Council members requested more information on that topic before weighing in, and the topic will be placed on council's agenda for April the 15th. Council passed a resolution for approval of an agreement with Greene County to include the Village of Yellow Springs zoning designations on the Greene County GIS mapping system. Doesn't cost anything. It seemed like it was pretty much just needed to be done legally, but just keep doing things the way we're doing things. Work on the Spring Meadows development continues on schedule. 2 basements have been dug, and the gas and power line boring is upcoming. And then Chief Burge appraised council of safety plans in place to accommodate what is expected to be a high level of visitor influx for the April 8th eclipse. And if you haven't seen it yet, I'll just add that there is a website that has all the information that you might want or need related to the clips and the springs. And that website is eclipse.yso.com. Is that right? There you go. Check it out. Share it with all your friends.
Great.
I think that's it.
Thank you. Gavin, do you have anything from the Housing Committee?
Well, let's see. We didn't meet in February, so I think this group didn't meet in February.
No, we did.
Right? Did we meet?
The Planning Commission didn't.
But the Housing Committee.
I'm just trying to remember how far to think back, because we
Okay.
just skipped
Oh, yes.
one.
So
Anyway, I think
January.
the main update is that, and obviously Meg and Susan jump in, but I think the main update of the Housing Committee is that we're kind of recalibrating with the new village manager and trying to figure out, our capacity. And one of the topics that's come up is that and I think I'll say this right, is that it feels like there's sort of a gap in capacity from, in terms of staff, time and energy, and the interest of the committee and the council and I think broader than that. And so there's been initial conversations about the possibility of either hiring or contracting or something to fill that gap between what we want to do and what we actually have the time and resources to do currently. So there were many other things discussed, but that is the one that I will mention because I remember it. Meg or Susan, anything you would add?
Related to housing effort and kind of part of the consideration of staff time is HomeInc moving forward with some public stakeholder meetings. I mean, public being people they're inviting, not public hearings, but regarding doing apartments through a specialized federal funding source. So we've been meeting, staff has been as well, part of that effort on identifying a location for that potentially. It's really high level still, but it is also housing related and related, taking up staff time as well.
And I think the other thing is that we have looked at the land that the village owns, and we are beginning to look at prioritizing of what might be the best to develop first and how to go about that.
Yep. Lots going on. Actually, a lot going on. I add those. I think it's good to add those because I feel like a lot of times we've come back and said, "Oh, we're recalibrating," but we are actually moving forward. It's housing efforts. There is work being done. It's just sometimes having a setback to make sure that we have enough resources is a good idea.
Well, we've had a lot of change this last year. you know.
Yeah,
We've had changes in council leadership, we've had changes at the staff level. So, I mean, yes, we've been recalibrating a little bit, but I think it's to be expected when the changes occur.
Okay. And the Housing Committee is not meeting in March, or didn't meet in March, not meeting. We're meeting next in April. So we won't have a report next month, but we'll have one the following month.
What all village land?
There is a piece on Corey Street,
Okay.
and there is the glass farm, and then there is the parking area that's currently used for parking on Dayton Street that is downtown, right by us.
Railroad.
Where the
Yeah.
grand elevator used to be?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think those are the,
Those are the main ones. Yeah.
And then there's Lawson Place,
that they own, yes.
and there's been some very minor discussion, but just, about the potential use of that property. And the property at Corey is Corey and President.
Okay.
I thought I mentioned that. What did I say?
Oh, you did? You just said Corey. I was
Yeah.
just telling them where it was.
Corey and President,
President,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Terrific.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then we'll go on to our part for citizens' comments. And these are comments on anything that is not up for a public hearing. So are there any citizens that would like to come forward and speak? And if you do want to speak, please tell us your name and then your comments. If not, then we'll move on to our first public hearing. So this is the conditional use application by Julio Mota on behalf of the Mills Park Hotel. has submitted a conditional use application for a mobile vending at 321 Xenia Avenue.
All right, thank you. So yeah, this is a conditional use for what our code calls mobile vending, which is a food truck. And this is an application submitted by Julio Mota, who's here tonight, for what is called Salsa Brava, to operate a food truck there. They have actually been operating at that location, but weren't aware that a conditional use was required. And when staff was informed of it and noticed it, we reached out to them, and they've been cooperating and submitting the application to gain compliance officially. They'd like to operate the food truck Thursday through Saturday from noon to 10, and the property is already served by public services. Patrons will continue to use the outdoor seating of the hotel and the public restrooms located inside the hotel as well. They've already been operating with having trash receptacles. They'll continue to do that. They've obtained the Greene County Public Health Authority, and that's included in the staff report. And so basically, the application material complies with everything in the code requires that's applicable. And I'll stand for any questions. I'll recommend approval, and you can hear from the applicant.
Any questions for Meg? If not, Julio, would you like to come forward? And anything you'd like to say?
Hello everyone, my name is Julio. I'm the owner of Salsa Brava. Thank you for this opportunity. I would like to add, in addition to she said, the food that I provide is Latin cuisine. And besides that, I have some customers that come from outside the town, and they bring more, I would say, money to the town, because they say, where are you located? So I say, well, it's in this place. And, oh, yeah, I would like to go there. So they come down and then shop around and stuff like that. Thank you.
Great. Does anyone have any questions for him? Okay, if not, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
I
then,
have just one quick question.
Sure.
So, and this is kind of dumb, but the item F here, the food truck shall be stationary at all times when open for business. I'm just wondering why that's in there and how it would not be stationary. I mean,
You didn't have our ice cream man.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I can think of is an ice cream truck.
He just kind of
But
keep
he-
it going a little
but he
bit.
kept
He'd be
going.
like, give me the ice cream.
well, you could stop, but then you could roll on.
okay.
You know, I think it means like moving throughout the town. It's like ice cream trucks used to do, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what it is.
All right. Okay, that makes sense. Not like people running behind the truck.
Yeah, come get
All
it.
right. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
There's those like beer things,
Oh,
Right? Oh, that's true. The peddling
Yeah.
beer.
which
Yeah.
I'm very opposed to, by the way.
Okay.
I've never heard of this. Okay.
Okay, then,
tell you
if
about it later.
anyone doesn't have other questions,
I
then,
have just one real general question, because, I haven't been involved with, seen one of these before, but I presume that all of the mobile food trucks had gone through a conditional
Yes.
approval process.
yes.
Yeah, you gotta have permits from the health department, stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just like having a restaurant, it's its own
Yeah,
wheels.
we haven't had very many. We had Miguel's, and then there's another one that we've done before.
and the food trucks like at the brewery, that's a different,
Well,
They got one too.
no, it's the entity gets the permission to have food trucks. The food trucks themselves don't have to come get permission. So this is a little bit unique. Generally, what would happen is Mills Park Hotel would come and say, we'd like permission for
Okay.
a food truck, 1, 2, 3, however many, and that's simply the permission that's given. It doesn't matter
which,
who the food truck is.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then I move approval.
We can open public.
Oh, thank you. I forgot. We need to have a public hearing on this. So we will open the public hearing, and if anybody would like to speak, if they'll come forward and say their name. And if nobody wants to speak, then we'll close the public hearing. Okay, we've had our public hearing, so now I will move approval of the conditional use application by Julio Mota for the mobile vending food truck at 321 Xenia Avenue.
I'll second that.
And we're approving the ability to have a food truck there, not necessarily this.
No, this.
This
no,
particular
we're-
food truck.
This
This
is
food
not,
truck.
I was just going to say, it would be a grand favor for the Mills Park Hotel if you simply approved one food truck at that location under these conditions, because Mr. Mota has all of his licensing and permissions. He can serve food. He simply needs a location. It's the hotel that needs permission to have a food truck operate out of their premises.
Okay, and so is that what we're doing? We're giving permission to the hotel?
The hotel isn't here.
Well, the hotel, and who submitted
They have authorized them to submit on their behalf.
on their behalf, on the
Yes.
hotel's
Yes,
behalf?
and I've spoken with the hotel, and they wrote a letter authorizing it.
See the letter, I was just
So-
looking for the actual application.
Conditional uses run with the land, so the business can change in and out. It is for the conditional use
Okay.
in general.
But the applicant's name is Julio.
Right, but then that's why I had the owner submit a letter and authorization, because they're technically the owner of the property.
I
and that's where the
understand that.
food truck is.
What I'm saying is,
Okay.
although Mills Park might want it for them, they are not the ones who submitted the application. It was Julio who submitted the application. So can we approve it for the hotel?
I'm comfortable with that, but I don't know if Judy is.
Well, we've had other
Right,
people
that's how I
put in applications representing
Right.
people. Here.
I guess what, I mean,
And here's the letter right here.
A workaround would be if Mr. Mota is comfortable changing the request slightly, and Planning Commission is comfortable with him speaking on behalf of Mills Park Hotel to request permission for one mobile vending food truck in this location, he would then be the applicant on behalf of Mills Park Hotel, but it could be his food truck, it could be another food truck. It simply gives Mills Park the ability to have one food truck at that location, which is how all of the conditional uses generally run. It's simply a food truck or a whatever it is. So, I mean, I would think that that would not be problematic unless Mr. Mota is not comfortable with it.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
We got a letter from them, right? It's right here. I mean, Mills Park got us best up. They're giving complete permission.
It's fine with me, I don't know.
Okay,
I
so
want
we
tacos.
are then approving, then I make a motion to approve Mills Park Hotel for a conditional use application for one mobile vending food truck.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Got it? And I would assume you want to add the two conditions that were recommended by staff.
Yes.
Are here, just to maintain compliance, and then any new signage would require approval of sign application. So,
Yes.
all right.
Well,
Good.
yeah, and that's covered in their letter, too. They even says that there won't be any freestanding signage or amplified sound. The letter we got from Mills Park, so.
Actually, I'm wondering about the condition, because I'm looking at the form, and it says property owner, Mills Park Hotel.
Correct.
So isn't that sufficient to just say they're the ones that are applying?
No, his name is below it, saying that he's the applicant.
But that's the applicant, but not the property owner.
No, the applicant should be either, the applicant generally, usually if the property owner isn't the applicant, then the applicant is the builder, the architect,
Okay.
It's just, this is a unique kind of conditional use.
Okay,
Food
yeah.
trucks are just an oddity because that can swap in and out.
It is. I remember when we approved Miguel's, we approved Miguel specifically, but because he didn't own the land, he had to have permission of the owner to put it where it was. And I remember that it was Miguel's that we were approving.
But we've got permission of the owner in the letter that they sent out.
I mean, I don't think it's problematic, because you've got, the applicant is agreeable to the fact that what you're conditioning is this use on that property, not his specific use, which de facto means he can go vend food out of that property. It just needs to be clear that it's for that use in general, not only for his specific use.
Okay, we need a roll call now.
So everyone's comfortable?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Osterholm.
Yes.
DeVore Leonard.
Yes.
Zaremski.
Yes.
Greene.
Yes.
Stiles.
Yes,
Thank you.
okay,
And y'all good.
approved.
You're approved.
That wasn't nearly as painful.
How long about way? Okay.
Thank you.
The next item we have is a text amendment. The Village of Yellow Springs is applying for a zoning code amendment to support the active transportation, amend Chapter 1264 off-street parking and loading, add bicycle parking requirement by use for new development requiring conditional use approval.
All right, thank you, Susan. Yeah, so this is the official zoning text amendment application and hearing for considering adding bike code requirements. We've been working on this since August 2023 with the Planning Commission. We've had 4 Planning Commission meetings related to the topic. In the staff report, I outlined the intent and the various meetings that have occurred in detail. In general, this text amendment aligns with several existing policies and plans adopted by the village, including the comprehensive plan, with the overall intent of supporting non-motorized forms of transportation that have various benefits for health and the environment. Between Gary and I, we've had about 9 different meetings related to this topic. And at the past Planning Commission meeting in January, I almost said February, the commission directed me to bring back the formal application for public comment and formal review. And I prepared a draft code language in strikeout and underline fashion. However, I don't think that it came through in the PDF with the red showing underlined as what I'm adding and the red strikeout as what the draft removes from the code. And so in front of you on your desk, I gave you a copy of that so you could see really clearly what the proposal includes, the text. So I did, and again, this is Exhibit B in the staff packet, and what I did is I took the feedback from the last meeting and the prior meetings and just included it in the report in the code language. And it was reviewed by our attorney, and she approved it for including codification if it gets approved and moved on to council. The main things that were talked about at the last meeting were one that should be required. So in this draft, I have bike racks will be required when there's a conditional use application that's being applied for. So whenever someone submits for a conditional use and is applicable based on that zone, the bike rack will be required based on the specifications in that table. And I will add that I know there was discussion about residential at the last meeting, and in that schedule of uses, you'll see that for single-family homes, it's not required, or 2-family homes, it's not required. It's only going to be required in residential when it's multifamily. And again, if a conditional use is required. And there are some instances where there could be some of those things, but not a conditional use. And then I did add a waiver language, so in addition, for any time when it's applicable that they have to install bike racks, at the same time at the conditional use hearing, they would come to Planning Commission. They can also request a waiver if there's site constraints on the property. So a lot of instances in the downtown area where there's no space to put a bike rack, they could just include that as part of the application material. And when it comes to the Planning Commission for the meeting, you guys could say, yeah, we're fine with that, waiving that requirement.
And where is that in?
That waiver language, so on the draft,
Oh, I found it. It's 4. On page 4,
on
it's
page
4.
4, number 4.
Yep.
Yep.
So it reads, "The Planning Commission may waive the bicycle parking requirement should the property be unable to support installation of bicycle parking racks due to physical site constraints."
Great, thank you. Questions for Meg?
So, I guess I'm just trying to understand what problem this is going to solve, and whether, I mean, I know that we've talked about needing more bike racks in town, you know, and that, you know, that seems where like there is at times like, you know, congestion of bicycles and having difficulty parking, but then do we have any, I mean, so what is this trying to solve, and do we know that there really is a need for bike racks in all of these other different places, and by having it only occur when somebody needs conditional use, isn't that going to be like really slow?
Yeah, definitely. A couple points to that. I think, for one, this is just one small piece of trying to add bike parking locations throughout town. It's only for private property, and it's only going to be for conditional uses. So yes, it will take time for it to make a meaningful impact. The anecdotal information that I've received and Gary's received from bikers throughout the village is that there is a need for it, and that there is a missing pieces that we need more of it. So I would say this is addressing a small kind of piece in it, and Gary, I know, has committed to working with village staff in the next year or two to identify other locations that aren't on private property to help address the issue. That will, again, go tie back to staff capacity and, you know, funding sources and that stuff, but and I will say, like, I also heard you at the last meeting that you weren't generally in support of this, and so I understand, that's totally fine with you too. I was taking, just so you know, my method is I go with the total number of votes, you know, so with 1, 2, 3, because I re-listened to the meeting. I think it was a 4-ish, maybe Scott was seen maybe a little bit, maybe not, but he was on the fence. So I would say at least 3 for it, which is why I brought it back, continue to bring it forward.
Okay, and just so other than the downtown area, which obviously, you know, do we have anecdotal evidence or any kind of evidence, like, you know, so this would apply to like churches, you know, are we seeing that there's like all the bicycles outside of churches with no place to stand, or office buildings, or the dentist's office, or auto repair shops? I mean, it applies to all these things that I don't think I've ever seen anybody bring a bike to, and I'm just wondering, you know, okay.
The thing, though, is you make an interesting point. If there's no place at all for you to park your bike, why would you ride your bike to that place? That's part of the issue. If there's nothing you can lock your bike up to, but there's car parking spaces, so you drive your car. The point is not having any parking space, bicycle parking, doesn't encourage the use of biking. It's the same to those places. It's the same way if you have something and there's absolutely no sidewalk route whatsoever to get to the place. That doesn't encourage people to walk to the place. So what this is trying to do is, as the village is committed to being more pedestrian and bicycle accessible and friendly, is to set up the infrastructure needed in order to be able to do that. For an example, I'll try to be generic. if you had a grocery store right downtown that was set up with parking, bicycle parking right in front that would accommodate bike trailers and cargo bikes and things like that, you'd have more people riding their bike to that grocery store in order to do grocery shopping, because they'd be able to put their bike somewhere, especially a bike designed to carry those sort of goods. But once again, it's trying to move in that direction.
But isn't the downtown bike parking issue a separate issue? Is that, I mean, aren't there constraints on, because 68 is a state route and there's limited amount of space for bike parking? And how does this get us more bike parking downtown?
What you're talking about, the limited space, has to do with on public property, not the private property. Give you an example. I'll give you a specific example. The Little Art Theater has a good quality bike rack in the back of the theater. You can park, I forgot, 4 or 6 bikes back there securely. Not many people know about it. But there's other businesses, in which you could put even 1 or 2 racks in a location that's on the business's property, okay? What's also the case is even, a bigger example, we're right in the midst of a bit of commercial activity in the town in terms of construction. If you have or will be having more construction along the bike trail in a manner that will attract bicyclers to come to the establishment, and you don't have any requirement for them to make any bike parking, even if they actually physically have the room for it. This would change that.
But don't we believe in, let's say for that example, don't we believe in the invisible hand of capitalism, that if they could have more business, they would put in more bike racks? I mean, this is going to, anybody who puts in an accessory dwelling unit is going to have put in a bike rack, a 36-inch wide U-shaped.
Are they?
I don't think so.
We don't think so?
I think
Where
it's
does it
in
say
there.
that?
Yeah, it's one of the first things in here. Accessory dwellings, 1 space per dwelling, half the car requirement. But if you have to round up, then you're going to have 1 bike rack.
Yeah, we could remove that.
Well, it's all of these. There's all kinds of things in here where I don't think that there's.
Except,
Well, I would like to say that a number of things that we have approved, like when the Morgan Family Foundation moved to their current place, one of the things that they talk about parking, lots of places will ask for reduced parking because they say people are going to walk and ride their bikes. And we approve reduced parking because we say, they're going to ride their bikes. Well, they need to have a bike rack, as Gary's saying, if we want people to ride their bikes there.
And I'm not against bike racks, but I'm just against us dictating. I think that the places and the businesses that are going to want to attract people on bicycles will put in bike racks on their own based on the need, but we're dictating that there are going to be lots of things that people will never use that bike rack.
okay. With that argument, you could say that none of these businesses anywhere need to accommodate automobile parking because they'll know that if they want to attract people, they'll put in car parking. Well, that doesn't necessarily happen. They could park on the street or whatever. But I'd like to mention, though, anecdotally, I've had at least 2 occurrences of interacting with people who have traveled to Yellow Springs on bicycle, typically from Columbus or Cincinnati, have rented ADUs, and made a comment to me that they didn't have any place to park their bike, that they had to haul it into the unit, and which they thought they were surprised, they thought it was inconvenient. So, but it's the same as car parking. We're requiring car parking.
But just to clarify, so I think the point that Stephen's making, because I'm seeing this a little bit. I think Stephen's referring to the carrot versus the stick. So it's given as, if someone says, well, I'd like to be able to reduce some vehicle parking or car parking and use bike parking as an offset, the code allows that to happen. That allows the planning commission to say, okay,
Yes.
if you'll put in X number of bike racks, we'll reduce the number of car parking spots that you're required to have by X. So that's the carrot that's available. I think maybe what I'm hearing Stephen say is he's objecting to the stick, that is, if you're building an ADU, you got to put one in. No wiggle room. That maybe is more
Well, I
the
think it's
objection.
also partially like trying to change human behavior. I mean, social engineering is what they call it. And there's this line between trying to have the community create better, healthy habits, which is part of what we're trying to do, versus relying on an automobile to get around everywhere, which is also about worse for the environment. Maybe we could try to encourage people to use a bicycle and travel more. And that's how I view it.
I would rather leave in the one for accessory dwelling, based on what Gary said. And if the accessory dwelling, and this is only for ones that are now coming up to apply, it would be for ones that are already approved, is that correct?
Oh, yeah, we won't retroactive, it's not.
So it will be
legally
only for
allowed.
those, and if they don't feel it's feasible, they can apply for a waiver.
Based on space. They can't say that they just don't like bicycle racks.
And we could change that to not be as limiting or as determined by the planning commission.
Yeah, I think that would be
So-
fine.
This might be my only chance to say this publicly on the record, and it's in context. So I don't believe in the invisible hand of global capitalism or whatever it is that you said as a all-encompassing, I might agree in some context with what comes out, but our role on some level is to figure out the appropriate checks and balances to not just seek out a sort of GDP improving capitalism as the end goal and result of our economy and our communities, but to also create places that are good to live in and that we honor the environment and that so that's like, by that logic, we wouldn't have an EPA, for example, right? Because why would a business ever not just dump more stuff in? Because nobody said anything except for the fish, they can't talk or something. So anyway, I could go into all kinds of examples about it. I think I understand what you're saying, but I just had to speak up against global capitalism because I had an opportunity.
And I seconded it.
I'd like to just comment then on the idea of adjusting the wording in number 4,
The waiver language?
the waiver language.
Okay.
See, I would keep it as, I like it as is. I mean, the reality is in an ADU, it's a bike rack doesn't take up much space at all. There's ways to install bike racks in a manner that take up very little space. It's dramatically different than what you need for parking a car. And personally, I just don't see it being much of a burden to figure out a spot to be able to, securely lock a bike up. And if that is a problem due to space, as opposed to some conviction, number 4 takes
For the
care of it.
cost, I mean, you've outlined some specific types of bike racks that, somebody's going to, putting in an ADU, and they're going to have to buy the thing, possibly put down a little concrete pad to have it there, or do some kind of way of having it securely mounted.
It's probably a small fraction of the cost of preparing spaces for car parking. Prices vary,
Yeah.
but it's in the neighborhood of a couple few $100. It depends what you get. Or I've seen people make homemade type of bike racks that are.
The one thing I would say about that is just that we do allow on-street parking for a certain number of those spaces, and if we're really holding to that belief that ADUs and transient guest lodgings and those sorts of things we really want them to be able to help people who cannot otherwise afford to stay in town, then it would be a little bit antithetical to add to the burden of preparing your space to be able to rent it out, because I'm just pointing out that was the one reason Planning Commission said we are in favor of TGLs more, not so much ADUs.
Yeah, so if
But
we're-
ADUs are not, ADUs are
If we
meant to
make,
be lived in.
I guess my question is, we make a couple changes, should we, if we remove these things, would you be in support of it then? Would you, or are you, this is kind of like a lost cause, I guess, is what I'm
I
wondering.
think this is sort of a nanny state kind of thing.
Okay.
But, you know, but if we let people count the on-street parking for their car requirements, do we let people count the stop sign that's nearby that they could, you could lock your bike to?
That's not a bike rack. In fact, we're trying to get away from that because it's dangerous. If you lock a bike up to a bike rack, to a stop sign, which is not designed to hold a bike, and it falls over and it partially blocks the street, that's not a good situation.
Well, what if, oh,
That's
sorry.
not what stop signs are.
Let's
Traffic
just leave it the way
signals
that it is.
signs are not for, nor are trees.
Okay, do we have other questions at this point?
Or comments, like
Comments?
Scott?
I have to hear Stephen on the slippery slope issue, because if I'm building an ADU for my mother-in-law, and I am told, well, you got to put in bike parking, and I say, well, it's my mother-in-law, she's in a wheelchair, and I'm told, well, yeah, but you got to have space for it, so. I mean, it's more like building a home, and to me sounds like, well, if you're going to build a home now, you're going to have to do these things because we think it's healthier, as opposed to a TGL where it makes some sense to me.
And I'm leaning that way more too, because I thought it was actually, I didn't think we were requiring it for ADUs, because I consider that more of a residential. So I can agree with that.
Maybe it would, if we change this to accessory dwellings used as transient lodging.
We can add that.
And it's just conditional
Well,
use.
Would that be acceptable to you, Gary?
I was thinking of a more general statement as I'm reading this over now 4 times. Instead of crossing out the due to physical site constraint, adding a few words, I like,
Well, we did talk about that. Meg had mentioned that first off.
yeah, I know, but I like
Can
keeping
you
that in there.
reference a page? Reference pages?
4.
Page 4, item number 4. What if we added to that sentence and say, unable to support installation of bike parking due to physical site constraints or other reasons? Add an open-ended,
That's what Meg suggested originally.
okay, I don't remember, but adding to it and not eliminating.
What did you say?
Yeah, or as other reasons authorized by the planning commission, yeah.
That would leave it pretty open.
Yeah.
And then accessory dwelling, like you said, this is only going to be required with conditional use, and all accessory dwelling units are conditional uses. So it's going to be coming to the planning commission, and those things can be considered and discussed.
So you said,
I
or
don't think
other
the
uses
lawyer's going to like that one.
authorized by planning
That is
commission.
completely subjective. Or other reasons is too subjective. I mean, I think you would have to say, for these reasons, it can be waived.
I could see that, potentially.
I mean, I'm just,
We could run it by our attorney.
and get language, but then it would have to come back.
Can we go ahead and approve this
The
then,
modification before council?
then with, I'm not sure how we say it,
Yeah.
approve it with the attorney reviewing number 4 and making sure the language is okay?
Legally. I think that would work, but I want to see what she thinks, because, like, procedurally.
I think so, because what you're doing is making a recommendation to council.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Scott, do you have any comments?
No, I'm on board because of the waiver.
Okay,
So let's get the waiver right, and I'll probably stay on board.
okay.
How do you feel about global capitalism?
I'm going to use my waiver.
Okay, then, if there's no other discussion, then I'm going to,
Don't we need a public hearing?
yes, we need to have a public hearing. Thank you. I'm going to open the public hearing.
Well, actually,
Thanks, Steve.
Oh, gosh, I need help
I
tonight.
don't believe in global.
Okay, I'm opening a public hearing on our text amendment for the zoning amendments to support active transportation. Anybody who would like to speak, come forward, and Stephen, if you'd like to go around and speak.
No, I said my piece.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. And then I'm going to make a motion to approve the text amendment with the modification of number 4 on page 4, that the language be reviewed.
You know you got to open a public hearing on every single one of these and go through every single one of these. That is how we
Oh,
do.
all 4 of them?
No, 126401, 126402A5, 126402I.
Oh,
You
you're
gotta do
kidding.
point by point by point by point. So we
Okay.
should just go down,
This
cruise on down.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Okay, we're opening up.
So if, since we got a little out of whack, and I'm trying to also take notes here, if you wouldn't mind going down in order of the, as it's ordered at the top, and then we'll do public hearing, open, close, ding, 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 and then if there are amendments or modifications, those get done there, they get approved there.
Oh, okay, makes it easier.
That seems crazy to me. I'm going to ask, are you sure we have to butt gas to it?
Okay, so the first one we're looking at then,
That seems so crazy.
let me make sure, is 1264.01, purpose.
I'm double checking.
We're opening the public hearing. Would anybody like to make a comment? Hearing no comments, we'll close the public hearing on purpose. And so I guess we will now vote on purpose? Yep. Okay. Anyone like to move approval of purpose?
So moved.
I second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Yes.
Okay. So noted. Our next one is general requirements, 126402. We're opening the public hearing.
And this is A5?
Does she have to do subsection too?
This
Well,
is-
because that is exactly
Okay.
what it is.
Yeah. Because there's 1, 2, 3, there's 4 within A2, O2, but, okay.
I mean, does this seem crazy to you guys? I feel like we've done this before, like it's each little point by point.
No, but I'm willing to do it.
We can roll through it pretty quick.
Just to be
It's
safe. We'll
We
check.
are.
We'll
I'm going to close the public hearing on 126402, A5, and...
So moved.
Well,
and then
second.
Okay,
Who's the second?
Scott.
Scott seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Yes.
Okay, one opposed. And then we're going to 1264.02I. We're going to open the public hearing. .02I, I'm hunting for this.
So that is where that's the one I believe you're going to want to amend
I see it.
and with the approval of the solicitor.
Okay. Hearing no comments, I'll close the public hearing. And as Judy said, this is the one that we are adding on to, on page 4, number 4, we're adding or other reasons authorized by the Planning Commission with the approval of the attorney, or
Pending
change the
approval.
language. So I move approval of that.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the, I would just go with this.
And then we have, so
That's
that's,
the waiver, that's what you just said.
okay. So then we have 126402I5. Opening the public hearing. Hearing no comments, we close the public hearing. Have I skipped one?
No.
Okay.
Well, we did I-4 just then. The one above it was I. Did we have to do I by itself?
Doing this aye?
Well, let's go,
We
let's,
just did I.
Did
So
I-4?
does I include all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yeah, it should, because then we just mentioned what changes
Yeah, I
we're
think
making.
I included all of
Yeah, I
that.
don't think we need 5.
Okay, you're right,
Yeah.
so,
And so we don't need I-5 then either, because we've
Yeah.
just approved it. So then we're doing 126402. We're opening the public hearing. Hearing,
Oh, two, no, wait.
hold
I
on,
mean, 03?
so hold on.
Or we don't-
and that is then this chart.
No, the one, okay, yeah.
That's-
Okay, so
Yeah,
if you're doing it correctly, you're gonna do 126402. I, again, add the solicitor thing, done, because that's that whole section.
Yeah.
Didn't we just do that?
Well, except now we're skipping. Never mind, I give up. I'm pretty sure no one is gonna care a whole lot, but
Yeah, but then 126402J is all the table.
The
addition.
table's J.
Okay.
Okay,
I would open that, but the table definitely needs to.
and we closed the public hearing, so are we ready to, someone want to make a
did you
motion?
get a motion on, I didn't get a motion on 126402J, sorry. Did we get a motion in a second?
We were going to just open the public hearing on it.
I already opened the public hearing, I closed the public
All right,
hearing.
so now we need a
So we're
motion.
on J?
Yes,
Yeah, I so move.
I second it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Yes.
Okay. Have we gotten them all, Judy?
Yes.
Okay. Then we're going to go on to our last piece of business, our new one, which is a motion to modify the conditions of approval for the conditional use at 1114 Limestone Street.
About this one.
Whoa, whoa. Did we get a motion to recommend to council passage of the whole shebang?
No, we'll do that. Okay, then we need to get a motion. So let me get this correct, Judy. So we want a motion to approve the text, all the text amendments in the zoning code to support the active transportation. Is that correct? Which is
Amendments
1264,
as,
amending 1264.
yep.
Okay, I move that. Would someone second it?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Yes.
Okay.
To council, okay.
Great. Okay, now we're going to turn it over to me.
Basically, my error is what we identified through this. Okay, so in January, we had a conditional use that the Planning Commission approved to allow transient guest lodging at 1114 Livermore. And there was a couple people here testifying about it, and even the applicant asked about a condition that I put on the approval, which was directly tied back to a code requirement, limiting only 2 adults to the transient guest lodging. And then the way I was interpreting it, we went back and looked at definitions and talked to the attorney because he asked about that. And I went back and looked at the code section 1262.087C. It requires the maximum number of tenants permitted shall be determined by the applicable health, safety, and welfare requirements. And if the transient guest lodging is located in an accessory dwelling unit, no more than 2 adults shall occupy the accessory dwelling unit. And this is in the transient guest lodging section of the code, but that approval was actually not for an accessory dwelling unit. That transient guest lodging was located in the primary structure.
In their house, yes.
And even though it has shared sewer and water lines, which is kind of what the definition of accessory dwelling units are, since it's not a subordinate separate unit, it's not an accessory dwelling unit. And therefore, we're not required to restrict it to only 2 adults.
And so is there any restriction at all of how many people can be
It
in
would
it?
just be based on what the building code then would limit it to, so the space that's in there, the
Okay.
total square footage.
And so we're also not limiting it to adults only. Children can be
Right.
there also, because I think that was one of their concerns.
So we need if you guys are tracking that and support that, because it basically is in conflict with the code, we actually need to officially just have the planning commission okay removing that condition of approval from that application.
From that.
Does it need to be a motion? That was
So
my
if you,
question.
so you would move to amend approval of the conditional use for TGL located at 1114 Livermore Street to remove the following condition: no more than 2 adults shall occupy the accessory dwelling unit. That's the motion.
Okay.
I'll move to make that change to the conditional use.
I'll second it.
Great. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great.
Yay, wow. That felt so easy.
Did.
Thanks, guys, sorry about that.
And we didn't need a public hearing, I should have asked. Great.
No, that's what,
Because
yeah.
I would have missed the public hearing.
For the vast public.
Yes. Okay, do we know what anything on the agenda for next meeting?
Yeah, we might have the Cascades final development plan. If they have a couple outstanding things they need to get to me by next week.
Okay, and I will have to,
What's that? Cascades?
Oh, sorry, that is the final development plan for PUD by Home Inc. over near Herman Street and Xenia and what's the other street? Herman, Xenia, behind the
Behind
fire
fire department,
station.
yeah.
Okay, got it, yeah.
and I have to recuse myself from that.
Okay, Marshall, that's right, Marshall Street. Yeah, it's a phase, we're waiting for the phasing plan and some open space information. And then the other application next week is a conditional use for an accessory dwelling unit for a family that wants to add on space for their son. It's, I think it's on Rice Street, 785 or something, Rice Street.
Okay.
Okay, then if there is not any other business, then a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.